Right then, Forest faithful. Buckle up, because what I've uncovered in the past 48 hours will have you questioning everything about how this club operates behind closed doors. We're talking about players making public apologies after failed moves, international performances that have got fans absolutely fuming, and decisions that make you wonder if anyone's actually running the show. Picture this. A defender who was desperate to join us all summer, only to see the deal collapse completely. Now he's gone public with what he calls his mistake. But wait until you hear what he's really admitting to. Then there's one of our own getting absolutely slaughtered by his national team supporters after what they're calling a woeful display on the international stage. But that's just the beginning, Forest fans. Remember that Brazilian lad we signed with such fanfare just days ago? Well, he's already packing his bags and heading back to where he came from. 4 days. That's how long it took for this strategic signing to completely unravel. And if you think that's mental, we've got a teenager from our academy training with the England senior squad, proving we've still got something special coming through our ranks. But then there's the elephant in the room. Everyone's still talking about Nuno's future, and what I'm hearing from inside sources will shock you. Here's what I want to know from you lot. When you see these kinds of stories coming out week after week, do you still trust the process? Are we building something sustainable, or are we just lurching from one crisis to another? Because what I'm about to reveal shows a pattern that should worry every Forest fan. Hit that like button if you're ready for some proper home truths, and drop a comment below. What's your biggest concern about how this club is being run right now? Because the first story I'm covering involves a player who thought his time at his current club was over, only to discover that Forest couldn't get a deal done. The failed transfer saga I'm about to expose will show you exactly why our transfer strategy is being questioned by everyone in football. And trust me, his public apology reveals more about our negotiating tactics than the club would ever want you to know. Now, there's a fullback who spent the entire summer thinking he was heading to the city ground. Someone who believed his time at his current club was completely finished. But when the dust settled on deadline day, he was still exactly where he started. And now he's had to make a very public climb down. I'm talking about Pablo Maffeo, and his mistake statement after our transfer for him completely broke down tells you everything you need to know about how we operate in the market. Here's what actually happened behind the scenes. Forest were in serious talks with Mallorca for Maffeo throughout the summer. The Spanish fullback was a genuine target, someone who could have provided the quality and experience we needed in defense. But despite firm interest from our side, the two clubs couldn't agree on a fee. What makes this story particularly revealing is Maffeo's reaction. The lad genuinely thought he was leaving Spain. In his own words, he said, "I simply thought my time here was over." That doesn't happen unless there's been serious dialogue, serious negotiations, and probably some serious encouragement from our representatives. But when push came to shove, we couldn't get the deal over the line. Negotiations halted completely as we pursued other options before Monday's deadline. That's becoming a familiar pattern, isn't it? Big interest, lengthy talks, but no final agreement. Now here's where it gets interesting from a tactical perspective. Maffeo's someone who's proven he can perform at the highest level. He's played injured with 3 broken vertebrae, with a broken knee, with a broken foot. That's the kind of mentality and resilience you want in your squad, especially when you're competing in Europe. The fact that we couldn't close this deal raises serious questions about our negotiating strategy. Are we being too cautious with our valuations? Are we failing to move quickly enough when opportunities arise? Or are we simply not willing to pay market rates for the players we genuinely want? What's particularly telling is Maffeo's relationship with his own fans at Mallorca. They've been urging him to leave, and his response to their chants became a public controversy. He's now had to apologize, saying, "Going out there and telling them to be quiet was my mistake." The lad was clearly affected by the speculation around his future. His statement reveals someone who was mentally prepared to leave. "I was wrong, and if anyone in the stands felt offended, I apologize. It's true that the chants hurt me, I didn't like them, and I reacted badly." That's not someone who was casually considering a move. That's someone who was emotionally invested in leaving. From Forest's perspective, missing out on Maffeo represents a missed opportunity to add genuine quality to our defensive options. Instead, we ended up scrambling for last-minute alternatives on deadline day. which is never ideal for squad planning or integration. The broader concern is what this says about our transfer processes. If we're identifying targets early but consistently failing to close deals, that suggests either poor planning, unrealistic valuations, or simply not moving fast enough in a competitive market. For Maffeo, he's now committed to giving everything for Mallorca, saying he'll roll up my sleeves, work harder than anyone else. But you have to wonder if there's a part of him that wishes he was doing that in a Forest shirt instead. What's your take on this, Forest fans? Should we be more aggressive in getting deals done early, or is it right to walk away when valuations don't match? Cause honestly, stories like this make you wonder how many quality players we're missing out on due to negotiating tactics. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think we need to be more decisive in the transfer market? Because the next story involves one of our current players getting absolutely hammered by international supporters, and it raises questions about whether we're getting the best out of our squad. He's been one of our most consistent performers since arriving at the City ground. A player who's become crucial to how we set up both defensively and going forward. But his latest international display has got his national team supporters absolutely fuming. And the criticism he's receiving tells you everything about expectations versus reality. I'm talking about Neco Williams, and what Wales fans are saying about his performance against Kazakhstan should be a wake-up call for everyone at Forest. Let me set the scene first. Wales faced Kazakhstan in a World Cup qualifier at the Astana Arena, with Williams starting as a right back. They got the job done with a 1-0 victory that moved them top of Group J, and Williams played the full 90 minutes. On paper, that sounds like a successful evening, but Wales supporters were absolutely scathing about Williams' individual performance. One fan posted, "Neco Williams runs and works hard, has zero quality." Another added, "That's poor from Neco Williams, who plays regularly in the Premier League." These aren't casual observers. These are people who watch him regularly for their national team. The criticism got even more specific. Ridiculous amount of space left on the side to cut inside. Williams not tenacious enough. Wales ball watching at times, was one detailed analysis. Another supporter said, "What was Neco Williams playing at? Wales were under the cosh already without gifting them errors." Now let's look at this from Forest's perspective. Williams has been generally solid for us, but these international performances highlight some concerning patterns. The lack of defensive awareness, the positional errors, the failure to track runners. These are exactly the kind of weaknesses that get exposed at the highest level. His statistics for the match tell an interesting story. 90 minutes, 78 touches, 89% pass completion, 5 duels won, 3 tackles, 3 clearances, 2 successful dribbles. Those numbers actually look decent, which shows how stats can sometimes mask performance issues that fans clearly see. What's particularly worrying is the gap between perception and reality. Williams is a regular Premier League starter for us, someone we rely on heavily in our system. But if Wales fans, who desperately want their players to succeed, are this critical, what does that say about his actual level? The tactical implications are significant too. We play Williams in a system that requires our fullbacks to contribute both defensively and offensively. If he's struggling with basic defensive positioning and decision making at international level, that suggests vulnerabilities that better opponents will exploit. There's also the confidence factor to consider. Having your national team supporters publicly questioning your quality can be easy for any player. Williams needs to be mentally strong to bounce back from this kind of criticism and maintain his form for Forest. Interestingly, one Wales fan did defend him, calling it one of his best performances in a Wales shirt. But when the majority view is so negative, that suggests the bar has been set pretty low for his international displays. From a squad management perspective, this raises questions about whether we're getting the maximum potential from Williams. Is our coaching helping him develop the defensive awareness he clearly needs? Are we setting him up in a system that masks his weaknesses rather than addressing them? The broader concern is about our recruitment and development strategies. Williams was seen as a good addition when he arrived, but if he's not progressing as expected, that reflects on our ability to identify and improve players. What's also telling is how international football exposes players in ways domestic football sometimes doesn't. Against Kazakhstan, hardly world beaters, Williams looked vulnerable and error-prone. That's concerning for someone who's a regular starter for a Premier League club with European ambitions. The timing couldn't be worse either, with Williams facing increased scrutiny after our recent poor performances. When your key players are getting criticism at international level, it adds pressure on their club form as well. What do you think, Forest fans? Are the Wales supporters being too harsh, or are they highlighting genuine weaknesses we should be concerned about? Because honestly, when your players are getting slated by their own national team fans, it makes you question whether our standards are high enough. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Williams needs more competition for his place, or is this just international football being unforgiving? Because our next story involves a signing that lasted exactly 4 days before completely unraveling. Picture this scenario, Forest fans. You announce a new signing with genuine excitement. The lad comes to England, meets his teammates, gets his photos done, and then within 4 days he's back on a plane to Brazil. Not injured, not failed medical, but because he simply didn't want to be here. I'm talking about Cuiabano. And what happened with his immediate return to Botafogo on loan is either masterful planning or complete chaos, depending on how you look at it. Here's the timeline that will blow your mind. Monday, Forest announced Cuiabano's signing from Botafogo with all the usual fanfare. Tuesday, he's training with the squad, meeting his new teammates. Wednesday, reports emerged that he might head back to Brazil. Thursday, Forest officially confirmed he's returned to Botafogo on loan until December. 4 days. That's how long our strategic signing lasted before we shipped him straight back to where he came from. The official statement was diplomatic enough. The player will return to the Brazilian club until the end of the Brasileirão campaign. We wish Cuiabano luck during his loan period. Y'all, but the reality behind this move tells a completely different story. According to reports from Brazil, the decision was largely driven by the player's desire to stay at the club. Former fullback Rafael revealed that the player didn't want to leave the club in the first place. Think about what that actually means. We've signed a player who fundamentally didn't want to join us. Either our scouting didn't pick up on his reluctance, or we thought we could convince him once he got here. Both scenarios are concerning for different reasons. From a tactical perspective, this creates more questions than answers. Forest clearly identified left back as a priority position, especially with European football adding extra fixtures. But if Cuiabano wasn't mentally committed to the project, keeping him would have been pointless anyway. The financial details make this even more interesting. We reportedly paid $5, $2 million for Cuiabano, a bargain compared to the $8 million Bryson had offered earlier. But what's the point of a bargain if the player's heart isn't in it? What's fascinating is the relationship between our owner, Evangelos Marinakis, and Botafogo's John Textor. This isn't just a normal transfer. It's part of a broader partnership that's seen multiple players move between the clubs. Igor Jesus, Jair Cunha, John Victor, and now Cuiabano. That pipeline can be beneficial, but only if the players actually want to be here. The practical implications are significant too. We've now loaned back a player we just signed, leaving us potentially short in a position we identified as needing strengthening. Yes, we signed Alexander Zinchenko on deadline day, but that was clearly a panic move after other options fell through. Here's what really concerns me though. Forest have apparently created a detailed plan for Cuiabano during his loan at Botafogo, including English lessons. We're actively preparing him for a return in January when the Brazilian season ends. But if the lad didn't want to leave Brazil in the first place, what makes us think he'll be more willing in a few months? The timing is supposedly perfect. His return would coincide with the Africa Cup of Nations when Ola Aina will be away. But this feels like elaborate planning to justify a decision that simply didn't work out as intended. What's particularly revealing is how this reflects our transfer strategy. We've now signed 4 players from Botafogo this summer, more than from any other single club. That suggests we're relying heavily on this partnership rather than diversifying our recruitment. The player's personal situation also played a role. Reports suggest family considerations influence his desire to stay in Brazil. While that's understandable from a human perspective, it raises questions about our due diligence process. Shouldn't these factors be identified before completing a transfer? From Cuiabano's perspective, this loan arrangement gives him the best of both worlds. He stays at Botafogo for their crucial end-of-season run while keeping his Forest contract. But from our perspective, we've paid $5, $2 million for a player who won't contribute for months. The broader concern is what this says about our ability to sell the Forest project to potential signings. If players are reluctant to join or quickly want to leave, that suggests either poor communication about expectations or a failure to create an attractive environment. What's your verdict on this whole situation, Forest fans? Is this smart long-term planning or evidence of poor recruitment processes? Because honestly, signing players who don't want to be here feels like the kind of mistake that comes back to haunt you. Drop a comment below. Should we be focusing more on players who actually want to join Forest? Because our next story shows we do have some genuine success stories coming through our academy system. While we've been talking about transfer chaos and failed signings, there's a story that should remind every Forest fan why our academy remains one of our greatest assets. Sometimes the best recruitment happens years before you even realize it. And this week, we've had perfect proof of that philosophy. I'm talking about Zach Abbott. And seeing one of our academy products training alongside the England senior squad should give every Forest supporter genuine pride in what we're building from within. Let me paint the picture for you. Abbott has been named in the latest England U20 squad for their friendly against Italy at the SMH Group Stadium. But here's where it gets really impressive. Selected players were invited to train alongside Gareth Southgate's senior side, and Abbott was among those chosen. Think about what that actually means. Our academy graduate is training with the likes of Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, and Bukayo Saka. That's not just recognition of his current ability, that's the FA identifying him as someone with genuine potential to reach the very highest level. The pathway Abbott has taken is exactly what we should be celebrating at Forest. Academy product, worked his way through the youth teams, and now he's catching the attention of England's coaching staff. That's proper development, not the kind of expensive gambles we've been making in the transfer market. What's particularly encouraging is that Abbott isn't the only Forest player getting recognition at youth international level. Morgan Gibbs-White and Elliot Anderson were also involved in England training sessions recently. That suggests our academy and development programs are producing players capable of representing their country. From a tactical perspective, Abbott's progress represents exactly the kind of player development that sustainable clubs rely on. Instead of spending millions on players who might not want to be here, we're nurturing